I mentioned that there are relatively few scholars from Asia, Latin America and Africa that study terrorism and counterterrorism. Well, Akinola, I'm very happy to have you as a research fellow at the ICCT, the International Center for Counterterrorism, and that you are an exception to that rule. And maybe you could help us in indicating why a number of scholars actually from the region where terrorism is really happening, why they are not participating in the debate as much as you might expect. What challenges do they face when doing research or when participating in the debate?
Quite rightly, we have encountered a lot of difficulties in regard to data gathering. I think perhaps one of the most major difficulties which scholars and experts from the continent of Africa encounter is gathering primary data from the zones of conflict. There are security concerns, issues regarding fear of being attacked, but also it's important that this data is gathered and also fed into policy formulation processes. But in addition to this, I also think that there are also quite a number of scholars from Africa that have contributed to the counterterrorism debates globally. We have Martin Ewi from Cameroon, there is Kwesi Anin from Ghana, and both of them have actually examined the role of the African Union in combating and preventing terrorism on the continent. There are also institutions. In Algeria, over a decade ago, there was the Africa Center for the Study and Research on Terrorism that was established. We have another expert who has looked at issues of extremist violence and radicalization in Nigeria by the name Alawo Abiodun. And indeed, we have publication series that produce and generate knowledge on these issues. There is the issues in Africa, leadership issues in Africa series, which is currently being launched by the African Leadership Center, which is a continent-wide initiative that trains young African men and women on peace, security, gender, and terrorism issues.
And what about the link? So you mentioned a lot of institutes, and I know some of my colleagues work together with these institutes, but how can we improve it? How can we make sure that the participation in the debate is more active or better known to the outside world?
Indeed.
I mean, your guest research here is helpful, but what else can be done to make sure that we learn more from each other?
Yes, I actually think that a lot can be done. I think one major step that can take us forward in the process is trying to appreciate that unique perspective which Africa offers. In this regard, I'm referring to how we can challenge the conventional approach to counterterrorism, not just using the use of force, for instance, looking at the security development nexus, looking at that paradigm, looking at how we can employ a blend of soft and hard power, which is all fused into partnerships and interventions involving local and external actors. I think if both parties or if both sides of the world actually cooperate in these areas, it will take us much further.
Okay. Is there something like an African perspective to terrorism and counterterrorism and the way to study it?
Indeed, I think there is, because recent events, terrorist incidents on the continent, in northern Nigeria, the crisis in the Sahel, in East Africa, Somalia, actually reinforce the need to look at the link between security and development issues. We need to address the root causes of violent extremism, which most of the time is underscored by socioeconomic concerns of the people living on the margins of society. We need to find ways, strategies, and formulate policy that can incorporate them into the polity. And I think Africa and events in Africa reinforce that need. They emphasize the need to look at these realities, these issues.
And do you have the feeling that Western partners in Europe, the United States, know enough? Is there enough cooperation that we can learn from your experience and compare it with our knowledge of terrorism?
Indeed, there is a lot to learn from the Western perspective. Historically, a lot has been done, but then Africa has also done a lot. For instance, some of the things I've mentioned regarding socioeconomic concerns, root causes, structural violence issues. If you look at it critically, in Africa, there is need to look at the gender dimension, for instance, women, incorporating women not only at the grassroots level, but also at the highest levels of policy making. Events in Africa underscore the need to look at that. Okay. And I think if that can be combined with the conventional approach of Western scholars, I think the end product will produce something that is robust enough.
Well, I'm very happy that you were a guest fellow here at the ICT. I mean, that was one attempt to bring us together. And I'm very happy that we met in the last couple of weeks. I think I learned at least a lot from you. And I hope we could continue this kind of cooperation in the future. I think that would be a good way to learn from each other.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here. Thank you.